What's your question?
Hi. You spoke a little bit about the people who are not necessarily wanting plumbing, but just trying to survive. And I'd like to ask you about a common assertion among anti-poverty activists. It's a common saying now that we now have the resources and the technology to end poverty, and all we need is the political will. Is that true of this problem? We were talking about technology a little bit. And if it isn't true for water, then can that statement still be true about poverty anymore, since you can't thrive or survive without water?
I think there's a tremendous amount of truth in the statement, so I want to start by saying that it is more true than not in the following sense. We have more than 1 billion people on the planet who every single day are struggling for survival. That, in my view, is fully remediable. In the 21st century, with what we know, we should not have 9 million children dying every year before their 5th birthday. And we should not be in a situation where people are struggling by the hundreds of millions for every meal and for their very survival. That's how life is for a lot of people. I believe that can be ended. Even in these dryland areas where you do face the threats of drought, in many of the places we're working, you get 4 or 5 good years and then you get a drought year. Even with that, which is very painful, one can plan for that, one can adapt to it to an extent. I'm not recommending it as the stopping point, but I'm saying it's vastly better than the situation we have right now, because the situation we have right now is that even those 4 adequate rainfall years, the people are not able, because they lack the most basic tools, to generate a surplus which could carry them through a bad year. And so what I've been recommending for many, many years is that we make targeted, science-based, sensible investments in such places, because the food production on average could double by virtue of it tripling in the good years, maybe not doing so much in the bad years, but at least creating an environment that is on average much higher and that allows the bad years to be fought through without utter desperation. We haven't talked a lot about solutions here, and maybe we should, because even in these poor places on water, while I'd say it's the hardest of all of the issues, there are lots of things that can and should be done, from water harvesting, landscape management, farm system changes, drought-resistant crop varieties, low-cost irrigation, at least for part of the farming, that are valid, quite real answers for these circumstances. So I would say, as a starting point, don't lose hope that it's no, it's a myth, because tremendous things can be done, even in up to the dryland areas. But then let me add the sobering points as well, because I think it's important. For the really the dryland areas where it's not, and I have to do it in just average rainfall during the growing season, it's not 700 or 800 millimeters rainfall, but it's 200 to 300 millimeters rainfall, maybe too low for a crop. Or with a small downturn, you absolutely wipe out a crop, or you get a little bit of millet, which is the least demanding of water of all of the grain crops. For those places in the world, this is a very, very hard problem right now. Where we're, in our areas where we're working, we can do certain things, but I find them the toughest places of all. That may be 1/5 of the extreme poverty, requiring even greater investments for the solutions, I would say. But that 1/5 is a part of the world we need to take note of. Why? Because that's where Darfur is. That's where Somalia is. That's where Afghanistan is. It's not a coincidence. We can't come to understand this in our country yet, that we're facing water crises. We're not facing Islamism. We're facing hungry places that are destabilized because they don't have livelihoods and because the children are hungry and people are dying. And in Somalia, just to tell you a story, if I could just, I don't want to talk endlessly, but sorry, but you know, we have the piracy, okay? And why? That place is so water stressed and therefore so economically and socially stressed that they haven't even been able to maintain a government in the past generation. It's been lawless warlordism, a descent into a kind of anarchy. Why? Not just because it's arbitrarily so, because that is one of the driest places on the whole planet, and it's gotten drier. And we just gave, for the first time in a long time, $250 million of aid for Somalia. But you know what it was for? For a Coast Guard. Honest to God. It was not for a water pump, not for water holes. Our problem is we view these places as means, not as ends. We don't take it all seriously that there are people there. We only ask, what does it mean for us? That's a huge mistake for our country. We have to ask what's going on there. And the same thing we have to ask in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I fear that the war is spreading right now because we haven't yet come to the realization, unfortunately, that the military is not going to solve these problems. Because those are the very toughest parts. And the final point I would make on this is that if we let climate change just run loose, these places will become uninhabitable. And so this vision of finding a way for them to escape from poverty, which I deeply believe in and spend my nights and days and days and nights working on, we will not be able to keep up with a runaway changing global climate. Similarly, we can't keep up with a runaway population. So we have to get serious about population policy, contraception and family planning, climate change, and a lot of other favorite issues of America.
I don't know where the microphone is. Right there. Hi.
Hello. What role can media play for water literacy and as a stimulus for water conservation in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's a great question. Studies show that the vast majority of the people in North America get their environmental news from the media. And my day job is to organize educational fellowships for environmental journalists throughout North America so that they can do a better job of communicating that. The overall economy is hurting. Whether it's a recession or depression, we'll find out later. But the media industry has been in a depression for a long time now. And so my colleagues and I are very worried about what's happening to the media, what it means for public policy in the environment and elsewhere, because the economic model is broken. People want their news for free, which is understandable, but free news isn't necessarily the best news.